everyone, it's Laura Myers for CMS-Connected. Today I'm having a chat with Scott Liewehr of Digital Clarity Group about their new DCG Partner Finder. Based on the work they've done in the last couple years on really diving into the voice of the customer, they're now addressing a need in the market for both customers to be able to find the best agency for their needs and for digital agencies to showcase what makes them unique in their offerings. Hey Scott, how are you doing today?
Good, Laura. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. So first things first, what is the DCG Partner Finder?
Sure. So we're really excited about the Partner Finder. Digital Clarity Group is an industry analyst firm, so we've been talking to lots and lots of buyers and helping to play the matchmaker role to help them find both technology vendors and agency partners to help them achieve their digital objectives. And so the Partner Finder is kind of a spin-off of that, which is to say it's a free marketplace that essentially for both mid-market and enterprise buyers to help them find digital agency partners and or systems integration partners to help them achieve some of those digital objectives, right? So think of it maybe like a kayak for digital partners, essentially, right? So if you've used Kayak before, you know that you can do this, you can conduct a search and then whittle down the list you can kind of filter down by the partner type, maybe by geography you'd care about. You might care about industry vertical expertise because you're from the automotive industry and you want somebody who's got that specialization. Or also certain competencies. Maybe you're looking for somebody with some sort of technical capabilities, maybe that they have e-commerce capabilities. But you might also want to make sure that they can help you with your content strategy, right? So you can whittle down by expertise. And then lastly, you can also whittle down by technology expertise. So if I'm looking for Sitecore partners or agencies that know Adobe AEM and can help me implement that, or Hybris or something like that. So that's the other thing. So it whittles down that list and creates that short list for you. And then once you've got the short list, then you can dive into each one of those profiles and have a look at some, even more rich information. So everything from where their offices are located, all the way through to customer testimonials, case studies, their project approach, and quite a bit more. So that's it in a nutshell.
And I understand reviews are on their way. Tell me a little bit more about those.
Yes, so that's a really good point. I'm glad you raised that. Reviews we think are really critical, right? DCG has been really heavily focused on capturing voice of customer for the digital partners over the course of the past year and a half or so. We actually began collecting voice of customer feedback through a program that we call Vocalis about 18 months or so ago. In fact, Steve Goodall, who was an executive and CEO at J.D. Power for over 30 years, he leads our whole initiative because he really believes that transparency in this industry, much like in automotive and hotels and that, is really required in order to help to transform the space. So we've captured hundreds of these reviews on our Vocalis platform, and we're going to be using Partner Finder to actually surface some of that feedback to help buyers make more informed choices. The feedback is there today, but it's behind the scenes. So it is a primary factor in sorting criteria for them. So when you see a list come up, those that are higher, surface higher up, have the better Vocalis scores if we've captured some on them. But we're not explicitly surfacing the reviews just yet. So it's not there yet, but that'll be Gen 2 coming soon. And I think once we make that transition, we'll shift from just being kind of merely Kayak to TripAdvisor. So there you go.
Now, given what you said, this may be a bit of an obvious question, but why does the market need something like this?
Yeah, so I think for a few reasons. Number one, as odd as this might sound, it's really hard to find agencies and systems integrators. I say that's weird because I still find it baffling that those who focus on helping to lead digital marketing for their customers have a hard time getting themselves found. I think that's a little bit odd, but it is true. It's really hard to find them. There are just so many of them. There are more than 80,000 of them worldwide. So that's the first reason. It's hard to find them. And certainly it's hard to find them in the ways that you want to look for them, right? It's hard to find them to say, who are the ones, maybe you can find agencies, but who are the ones that are good in my industry vertical, who have that expertise, or who are the ones that know the technologies that I want them to help me with, or something like that. So one is hard to find. Two is, there are sources that are out there, but number one, they're not the greatest. And I think number two, sometimes they actually have some competing interests. I'll explain that. So certainly there's Google, right? You can use that. And I guess that gets you one part of the way. But if your project relates to technology, then oftentimes a source to go to might be that technology vendor. They often will have like a partner finder or a solution partner finder, they'll call it on their site. Usually these are pretty awful. And partners actually usually hate them because you can usually find partners by one of two ways. You can find them by geography, and usually that's not even as local as like, I live in New York, find me one in New York. Usually it's like North America. So it's not really very helpful. It's by continent. And second of all, it's usually they're sorted by precious metal tier of the kind of the vendor's tiering program for the partner, which like buyers just don't care about. They don't know anything about it and they don't care about it. So that's usually the only two ways that you can like find partners on their site. So that's frustrating. And then lastly is oftentimes people find their partner when they're kind of trying to take on some sort of a digital initiative is because it's based on the recommendation by the vendor, right? So the vendor will, if they don't leave you to your own devices to go use their solution finder, the salesperson will bring in a partner. Maybe they come into the deal with a partner, or maybe they might suggest you a couple to use. And that actually is certainly more helpful typically than the partner finder, but it's not always, sometimes it's challenging. Number one, that salesperson doesn't usually know your needs. So as I was saying before, if you need somebody who can also help me with content strategy, they don't know if they know those sorts of things. They don't usually know if they have your vertical expertise. But the second thing is that they don't have any idea how they've actually performed in the past. And we know this to be true because our Vocalis program, actually a number of the vendors subscribe to that because they're trying to figure out how well their partners perform on their behalf. So they don't know it. And if they as a company know it, certainly that salesperson doesn't usually know it. And then lastly is that sometimes that salesperson, there's some competing interests there. I don't want to be all, crazy about it, but to be honest, a sales guy's job is to sell. And while one might naturally presume, okay, they're going to bring me a partner who's going to help me succeed the most, they certainly would love that. But I think what they want more than that is a partner who's going to bring them their next deal, oftentimes. And so if they've just created a relationship with a new partner and signed a new partner agreement, they want to get that relation consummated, because if they bring them a deal, then that partner is going to bring them the next deal. Or if you're a really big name company, you work at Ford, I keep using an automotive, no good reason for that. But if you work at Ford, let's just go with it. If you work at Ford, that's a pretty big name. And so let me give that to one of my biggest partners who just brought me a really big deal. And it has so much more to do with that than it does to do this kind of favors, than it does to do with really whether that partner is a good match for that particular company. And then lastly is that just the market really does need some more transparency, I think. And so that does come more with some of when we work in some of those reviews. But I think transparency is really critical. If you think about, there's nothing wrong with waves and quadrants and that sort of stuff, especially in the vendor space, right? So you can look at technologies and compare them, and you can decide what good is, and then you can stack them up to that and come up with quadrants. That's wonderful. But when it comes to service providers, number one, there are so many of them. As I said, 80,000 of them. You can't possibly fit those on some nice little 2x2s. That's one. But two is that partners make promises, right? So technology either does it or it doesn't do what it says it's going to do, and an analyst can figure that out. But partners, digital partners, what they just do is they bring you a promise that says that we're going to be able to do this for you by this time within this budget. And I think that ultimately, whether or not somebody delivers on their promises in the past is the best predictor of whether they'll be able to do that in the future. And so I think that's the best, that's the best way to kind of really differentiate the market is by feedback from previous customers. So that's why we're going to be bringing that.
I definitely agree. Now, to stay in the thought process of a customer, what are the situations where if I were a buyer, I would want to use a tool like this?
Yeah, that's great. So Well, first of all, my colleague, Mary LaPlante, she likes to talk about digital partner afterthought syndrome. If you can think about that for a minute. So many times as an analyst firm, we're asked to help customers go and find a technology, right? It's like, get me the perfect web content management system, get me the perfect marketing automation platform. And the frustrating thing for us is we go, okay, yes, we can help you with that. There's no perfect, but certainly we can find one that fits you well. But have you thought about what partner is going to help you implement that? Because we really feel strongly and have seen in the past that the partner that you work with is far more important than the technology that you work with, right? You thrive or you fail based on how well that's implemented and aligned with your strategy, much more than what the technology is able to do for you. So this partner afterthought syndrome is really a thing, and we will always try to kind of surface that when people come to us to help them select the technology. We'll say, but you also need to find a partner. We're going to help you do that too, because that's really important. So usually they're in one of kind of four use cases. First is they already have a technology. Maybe they've just bought one, or maybe they've had one for a while, and maybe it's been sitting on the shelves and they need a partner to implement it, right? So that's one. Second one is they've already got that technology, but they want to replace their partner. So they need a new partner for some reason, whether there was a failure in past performance or it's just they need a new type of partner. Second one is they're just kind of starting out. The situation that we love is they're just starting out and they're going to go look for a new platform, and they want to look for a technology partner kind of at the same time aligned with them. And then the last is it actually has nothing to do with the technology. They just need a new capability or expertise from a partner. They want somebody to help them with their content strategy, or they want them something like that, and they need a partner. So that's where where they could really benefit from a platform like Partner Finder.
And on the other side of the coin, what's in it for an agency to be a part of this?
Yeah, good question. There are hundreds of agencies on the site today. And we work with a lot of agencies at DCG, and most of them are really frustrated. The frustration is they have a hard time differentiating themselves, right? So in two areas. So one is within, for example, maybe a vendor ecosystem. So if I'm a Sitecore partner, like Falcon is a Sitecore partner, they might say they have a hard time kind of standing out within that ecosystem for the reasons that I mentioned before. It's just separated by kind of partner tier, and it's really hard to, how do you differentiate yourselves in there? And then second thing is, for those who perform really well, it's hard to showcase that, because everybody says they perform well. Everybody says they're going to deliver on their promises. And so there's nothing out there today that really validates that. And so ultimately, we feel like if you do good work, then you should get more business kind of based on that good work. And I know that certainly partners feel the same way. And so we'll hear from many of them. Maybe they're a mid-size or a smaller partner and they have a hard time getting projects because they don't have the name recognition. Or sometimes we hear from a lot of them that actually everybody has a story that they'll tell us that they have to do the cleanup. The big name partner gets the project and then they mess it up, and then these guys come along and they have to fix it. And by that point, there's no budget left. The customer's already teed off, and you don't really have an ability to help guide them in a direction that you might think would have been better because you're kind of already down the path. Or you are one of those large marquee names. You have the brand recognition, but it's hard to stand out against the other marquee names. People don't, they only kind of look into this space when they really need somebody. It's not like they follow it like we do. So how, if you're a Sapient, do you stand out from an AKQA or something like that? It's very difficult. Everybody knows both of your names. So we talk about Partner Finder doing two things. Number one is helping them get in the room, right? So you can make that short list to be able to get in the room. And then number two, especially with that Vocalis data, be able to lend you credibility once you're in the room, that we've got third-party feedback from a neutral third party to be able to lend credibility to what you're saying.
Absolutely. From the beginning and understanding this initiative, I knew it would have huge implications for agencies, considering how many are out there. So I'm really glad we got to dive into that here. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you.
That was Scott Liewehr of Digital Clarity Group discussing their new DCG Partner Finder and what it brings to the market for both digital agencies and all the current and prospective customers out there. For even more on the wide world of digital business, make sure you always stay tuned in right here at CMS Connected.